no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country.
That was President Joe Biden in a primetime speech to the nation last week. A few days earlier, he lashed out at the Make America Great Again theme that's central to today's Republican Party. Biden claimed it was like, quote, semi-fascism. Is that how Democrats can win over the Republican voters they'll need to win statewide here in Arizona? Joining us is four-term Congressman Ruben Gallego of Phoenix. He also leads the fundraising arm for the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, their goal to help Latino candidates win office. Welcome back to Square Off, sir.
Thanks, Bram.
I want to give a little background, though, on your re-election campaign. Congressman Gallego is running for re-election in the new 3rd Congressional District. It is the safest Democratic seat in the state. His opponent is Republican Jeff Zink, a MAGA candidate who believes the conspiracy theory, devoid of any evidence, that COVID-19 was a bioweapon meant to convert the United States to socialism. All right, you're dealing with MAGA right in your backyard right now. You told MSNBC's Chris Hayes this past week that you are glad Joe Biden is not holding back anymore when he talks about Donald Trump and his supporters. Why is now the right time for the president to cut loose like that?
Well, I think because we're in a very serious situation, there is a very good possibility that some of these really anti-democratic forces are going to win elections. There are more than 6 Republicans running for Secretary of State's office across the country that are election deniers, that will actively actually overturn elections. And even you have some attorney general candidates, such as Abe Hamed that we have in this state, who says that he will arrest people that actually officiated the election last time. So we are in a very dangerous time right now, and I think it's important that the president brings this up so people can actually make decisions based on that information.
And it was Abe Hamed, the Republican candidate for Attorney General. Now, there are Republicans who can be won over by Democratic candidates. They have some problems as well, but do you risk alienating those Republicans by appearing to label a whole party as semi-fascist?
Well, number one, I think that President Biden didn't say the whole Republican Party. He was talking about the MAGA section of the Republican Party. And even within the Republican Party, they're very self-aware of what's happening. They just had to deal with some very hard primaries where they were basically pushed out by their own party. And so by us talking about the threat to democracy, that is our olive branch. That is our opening. That is our common value that we're actually talking to them, saying that we can join together and push back. And I think you're actually seeing those coalitions right now. There's a reason why Democrats in Arizona are winning, because there's a lot of Republicans that are looking at the trifecta of crazy that's coming out of with the top 3 candidates here, and realizing that the Republican Party is being taken over by the MAGA element. This isn't the McCain Republican Party in Arizona anymore, and they're moving to more sane, competent elected officials that are in the Democratic Party.
So Arizona has a slate of statewide Republican candidates who deny that Joe Biden is a legitimate president. You mentioned just one of them. So what's your advice for Democratic candidate for Governor Katie Hobbs as she takes on Republican Kari Lake, who is the leading promoter of this lie? Should Hobbs go full on with what Joe Biden is saying about the MAGA party, or is that really a side issue as she tries to win over, a real coalition of voters?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Again, you're never going to lose when you're talking about democratic values. It's the thing that drives this country. It's the thing that drives immigrants to move to this country. It's the thing that makes young men and women join the military to protect. So you're not ever going to lose by saying, I am here to stand for democracy. But it can't be the only thing you move on. And of course, I think one of the things that we can also point out too, and any candidate should point out too, is that the conspiracy theorists are those that are also engaging in probably many other conspiracy theories and ignoring the actual problems of Arizona. And I think with that type of communication, that type of messaging, you're going to have a better chance.
For the low information voters, God bless them, who decide every election though, isn't that a tough message for them to hear? If they're Republicans and trying to make up their mind?
Well, I certainly don't think that low information voters does not mean that they're voters that aren't interested and that they're not educated. It just means that they're making their decisions later. And to think that, I'm not of the personality that would think that they don't care about democracy. So I do believe in talking to them. And talking to them from a patriotic point of view, I think is something that's very strong. And again, we'll have crossover appeal.
I want to move on to your other job, chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus's Political Action Committee called the Bold PAC. You help raise money for Hispanic Democratic candidates around the country. Republicans say they fielded a record number of House candidates who are Latino this year. You have the big picture. How well are they doing in taking on Democrats?
Well, congratulations. I think it's always great that we have more representation. So I don't, I'm actually kind of happy. I mean, it's always good to have more voices. At the end of the day, what matters is who wins and the quality of candidates. What we're seeing is that the Democratic Latino candidates are doing very well. They're running very strong campaigns during a lot of the toss-up districts, and because they're running, we are making these districts toss-up districts. So with the focus on the economy, on patriotism, on democracy, on the overturn of Roe v. Wade, I think the Democrats in Latino districts are going to do very well.
But is there a new generation of Latino voters who Democrats just aren't reaching anymore? Democrats seem to assume, oh, those are our voters, they'll come to us. And that doesn't seem to be happening.
I think in certain areas that's true. If you look at Florida, you look at parts of South Texas. But if you look in Arizona, the Democrats have not lost any step with the Latino voters. As a matter of fact, the reason Democrats are winning statewide and winning many races is because we're still activating Latino voters. We're still engaged with them. And more importantly, we're speaking to them. They're an aspirational community. They want to send their kids to college. They want to buy homes. They want to, really live the American dream. And it's Democratic policies that are doing that. It's not Republican policy. And that's why they're sticking with us here in Arizona. And they're going to do it again across the country.
Aren't they just as concerned about the economy, gas prices, as other voters are?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're going to look at the fact that gas prices have gone down for more than 75 days in a row. They're also going to look at the fact that we're here in terms of the Inflation Reduction Act. The fact that people are going to have, especially a lot of them that are on Medicare, are going to actually have their prescription drugs capped at $2,000 a year, that they're going to have lower and lower prescription drugs every year. That's a Democratic delivery to the Latino community.
Let's talk about your future. You've been raising money off the prospect that you might run against Kyrsten Sinema in 2024. Here's the question I have. The current model for winning statewide in Arizona, Kyrsten Sinema showed it in 2018, Mark Kelly in 2020, is run toward the middle, be independent. You're identified more with progressive causes. So it makes me wonder, you might be able to win a Democratic primary, and who knows what 2024 holds, but you might be able to win a Democratic primary, but running statewide seems like a bigger lift for a progressive Democratic candidate in Arizona.
Look, as I said, I'm going to talk about 2024 elections starting in 2023. Right now, I'm helping every candidate up and down the state and making sure they win. And of course, I think I've always been a person that's been solutions-based, whether I was in the State House helping craft the Medicaid expansion with Democrats and Republicans, shaking hands with even Jan Brewer to make sure it gets done. I'll fight for people when it comes to making sure they have lower prescriptions prices, that they're able to buy a home, that they're able to really live the American dream. I think those values are Arizona values, and I think it's going to break across all barriers if I decide to go that way.
Where are you right now, 50-50?
I'm focusing on 2022. And, getting us across the line, and then we'll go from there.
Congressman Ruben Gallego, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, man.